There is a kind of exhaustion that does not show in the body, but weighs heavily on the chest. It is the fatigue of someone who works, strives, tries to organize everything, yet feels that money never stays. It comes and it goes. You pay one bill, another appears. You solve one issue, an unexpected expense follows. And inside the home, even when no one says anything, there's a silent tension in the air, a concern that settles in the background of the mind and does not leave, not even at bedtime. This anguish is not lack of faith, it is excess pressure. Financial instability does not only affect numbers, it touches identity, it affects self-worth, it shakes the sense of security. The brain enters a constant alert state, as if always anticipating a threat. Neuroscience shows that when we live under continuous insecurity, the nervous system remains activated, increasing anxiety, impulsivity, and reactive decision-making. This is not spiritual weakness, it is an emotional response. And when the mind lives in fear, decisions are born from fear. Decisions driven by fear rarely build stability. It is at this point that the book of Psalms opens a different door. Psalm 112 begins with a sentence that seems simple, yet is structurally profound. Blessed is the one who fears the Lord, who greatly delights in his commandments. Notice the order. Before speaking of wealth, before speaking of prosperity, before speaking of stability, it speaks of reverence, of alignment, of delight in living by principles. Prosperity begins in reverence, not in haste. It begins internally, not externally. It begins in awareness, not in frantic striving. Perhaps you were taught to pursue quick results, an immediate solution, a sudden turnaround. But Scripture points to something deeper, foundation. When the text says, blessed, it is not describing someone who suddenly received money. It is describing someone who built within themselves an axis, a center, an internal stability that sustains external decisions. When the heart finds direction, choices begin to change. And when choices change, destiny begins to reorganize. There is also symbolic meaning in repeating this psalm 7 times. In biblical language, 7 represents completeness, a finished cycle, a perfected work. This is not superstition or empty ritual. It is spiritual discipline that trains the brain to leave the automatic pattern of fear and enter a conscious pattern of faith and responsibility. Repetition creates neural pathways. Repetition retrains thought. Repetition aligns emotion and conviction. When you repeat, you imprint. When you imprint, you internalize. When you internalize, you begin to act differently. Often what we call a financial curse is not an invisible force against us. It is an invisible cycle within us. Impulsive decisions, emotional spending to relieve anxiety, lack of planning because fear blocks clarity. It is a pattern, and patterns repeat. But the word, declared with awareness, begins reorganizing that pattern. First inside, then outside, first in thought, then in practice. Remember the story of Jericho. The walls did not fall on the first day, nor the second. There were repeated marches. There was silence. There was obedience. There was perseverance. To natural eyes, walking around a wall daily seemed pointless, but each lap was building something invisible. Each lap was preparing a breakthrough. So it is with the faithful repetition of Psalm 1-12. Each reading is a lap. Each declaration is a step. Each conscious pause is internal alignment. and invisible walls connected to scarcity begin to weaken. Perhaps you are tired. Perhaps you have been trying for a long time. But today is not about doing more. It is about aligning better, not about running faster, but about walking with awareness. Psalm 112 is not a magical formula to attract money. It is a map to build stability. And stability begins when the heart finds reverence, when the mind finds direction, when decisions find principle. Take a deep breath now. Feel the air entering slowly. Feel your body relaxing, even slightly. You're not too late. You're not condemned to repeat the same cycles. There is a path, a firm path, a sustained path, and it begins here, with awareness, with reverence, with the decision to allow the Word to reorganize your interior before transforming your exterior. There is a phrase in Psalm 112 that immediately awakens something in the mind. Wealth and riches are in his house. Or when we hear this, we almost automatically imagine material abundance, paid bills, full reserves, visible stability, and there is nothing wrong with desiring that. The problem begins when prosperity is reduced to immediate accumulation, when stability becomes merely quantity. When we believe financial peace depends only on how much comes in and not on how life is lived. Within the book of Psalms, the structure is intentional. Before mentioning wealth, the text describes character. Before prosperity, it speaks of righteousness. Before external stability, it presents internal firmness. That is not a detail. It is architecture. It is as if the psalm gently whispers, "A house remains standing only when the interior is solid." Money amplifies what already exists within. If there is balance, it amplifies balance. If there is disorder, it amplifies disorder. This may feel counterintuitive. You may be waiting for financial change in order to feel secure, but the text points in the opposite direction. Financial stability begins with inner stability. It begins in small decisions, how you respond to the temptation of impulsive spending, how you face a debt without denial, without avoidance, without self-sabotage, how you choose principle over pressure, small decisions, small adjustments, small alignments. That is how roots grow. There is something deeply human about seeking quick relief under pressure. The brain looks for immediate pleasure to compensate for stress. An unexpected purchase, a rushed commitment, an offer that seems too easy. Then regret comes. The cycle repeats. But when you repeat Psalm 112 with awareness, something shifts. The word creates pause, and pause interrupts impulse. And when impulse is interrupted, choice becomes clearer. As you reflect, do so with honesty, but without condemnation. Have you avoided looking at numbers out of fear? Have you assumed commitments larger than you can sustain to maintain an image? Have you postponed necessary decisions while waiting for an external miracle? Awareness does not accuse. Awareness illuminates. True prosperity is coherence between values and actions. It is when what you believe begins shaping what you do. It is learning to say no to what destabilizes and yes to what builds. And this does not happen in one leap. It happens through process, through repetition, through practice. Think of a tree. Before producing visible fruit, it deepens invisible roots. Roots grow in darkness, in silence, without applause, without immediate results. But they are what sustain the weight of fruit when it finally appears. Sustainable provision is born from solid foundation, from aligned decisions, from a mind not ruled by fear, but guided by principle. When Psalm 112 declares, "Wealth and riches are in his house," it is not promising reckless excess. It is describing constructed stability, a house marked by order, awareness, justice, and generosity. A house where choices are made with reverence. A house where money is not master, but tool. Perhaps today, your first step is not earning more. Perhaps it is organizing better. Perhaps it is calmly facing your numbers, establishing clear limits, aligning habits with values, small commitments, consistent choices, intentional structure. That is how prosperity stops being a distant desire and begins becoming real architecture. Take another breath. Notice the difference between urgency and direction. Urgency pressures, direction guides. Psalm 112 does not create urgency. It creates direction. And when there is direction, even if the road is still long, there is peace in the process. Because you know you are building on foundation, and foundation sustains. There is a kind of fear that makes no noise, yet never fully leaves. It shows up when the phone rings at an unusual hour, when a bank notification appears, when someone says, "We need to talk." Financial anxiety often is not born from present lack, but from anticipated threat, fear of the unexpected, fear of illness, fear of loss, fear of not being enough, and the body reacts before anything even happens. The heart races, the breath shortens, the mind runs toward catastrophic scenarios. This is not exaggeration. It is a survival system activated. Yet Psalm 112 declares something almost paradoxical. He will not fear bad news. His heart is firm, trusting in the Lord. Notice the order again. The heart is firm before the news arrives. Firmness is not dependent on the scenario. Confidence is not dependent on the outcome. This changes everything, because if your peace depends on the absence of problems, you will never be at peace. But if your peace is anchored in an internal axis, news no longer commands your emotions. This does not mean denying reality. It does not mean pretending bills do not exist. It does not mean spiritualizing irresponsibility. Spiritual security does not eliminate financial obligations. It prevents them from dominating the mind, and that is liberating. When the mind is not ruled by panic, it can think clearly. It can plan. It can negotiate. It can act strategically. Faith, in this sense, does not replace action. It refines action. From an emotional perspective, when you declare out loud that your heart is firm, you are sending a message to your nervous system. You are slowing the internal alarm. You are telling your brain, "I am not alone. I have direction." That sense of support reduces impulsivity. It reduces rushed decisions. It reduces choices made merely to escape fear. The word, repeated consciously, creates biological and spiritual stability at the same time. Practically, try something simple and profound. The next time you receive difficult financial news, before reacting, before replying, before deciding, pause, breathe deeply, and declare, "My heart is firm. I trust in the Lord." Say it slowly. Feel the weight of the words. Repeat until your body slows down. You are not denying the problem. You are choosing not to be ruled by it. Consider the story of Joseph in Egypt. He lived through abundance. He lived through scarcity. He endured prison. He governed a nation. In every phase, there was an ability to manage with balance. He did not waste during abundance. He did not panic during famine. He planned in good years to sustain difficult ones. That is firmness before the news. That is emotional maturity applied to practical life. True stability is not the absence of external fluctuation. It is internal constancy. News changes, seasons change, circumstances change, but principles remain. And when you anchor yourself in principle, fear loses intensity. It may knock on the door, but it does not take control of the house. Perhaps you have lived reacting to bills, to surprises, to pressure. Now there is another possibility: to respond instead of react, to respond with awareness, with firmness, with practical faith. A firm heart is not a hardened heart. It is an aligned heart, and when the heart aligns, the mind clears. When the mind clears, decisions become wiser. Repeat this within yourself. Firm before the news, firm before the pressure, firm before the result. That is the stability Psalm 112 describes. Not imaginary, not naive, but cultivated, built, trained, and it begins within. There is a part of Psalm 112 that surprises us in the middle of promises about stability and prosperity. The text says that the righteous person distributes freely, gives to the needy. It is curious. When we think about financial stability, we usually think about saving more, keeping more, accumulating more. But here, at the heart of the psalm, prosperity appears alongside generosity, not as loss, not as recklessness, but as the mark of someone who is truly stable. This confronts a very deep fear, the fear of not having enough. When someone has lived through scarcity, the natural impulse is to hold tightly, to retain, to protect, to build emotional and material reserves. And yes, there is wisdom in planning, but there is a subtle difference between healthy planning and panic-driven hoarding. When fear governs, the heart closes, and when the heart closes, the mind enters constant survival mode. Surviving is not the same as prospering. The generosity described in the book of Psalms is not irresponsible. It does not ignore limits. It does not encourage imprudence. It flows from a firm heart, and a firm heart can give without panicking. It can contribute without feeling as if it is self-destructing, because it understands that provision is not only the result of retention, but also a flow. From an emotional perspective, when you practice conscious generosity, something shifts internally. The brain stops operating exclusively in a scarcity code and begins to experience a sense of sufficient abundance, even if it is small, even if it is symbolic. Setting aside a small portion to help someone sends a powerful message to your internal system. I am not in despair. I still have something to share. That perception reshapes identity. You might think, but I am already stretched. How can I give? The answer is not in the amount. It is in intention and maturity. This is not about compromising what is essential. It is about breaking the belief that absolute security comes only from accumulation. It may be something simple: quiet help, a modest contribution, a silent gesture. The value may be small, but the internal effect is large, because you stop acting like someone dominated by lack and begin acting like someone who trusts in provision. There is a simple and powerful metaphor. Stagnant water spoils. Flowing water renews itself. When money is treated only as something to grip in fear, it becomes a source of tension. When it is managed with responsibility and generosity, it becomes a tool of purpose, and purpose generates meaning, and meaning generates peace. Psalm 112 does not separate prosperity from justice. It does not separate stability from compassion. This reveals something profound. True security is not only in what you possess, but in who you become while possessing it. Character sustains what resources amplify, and generosity shapes character. As you continue repeating the psalm, allow yourself to reflect. Is your relationship with money marked by fear or by purpose? Do you manage it merely to survive or to build something larger? Do you hold out of panic or distribute with awareness? These are not questions for guilt. They are questions for awakening. The kind of financial stability that lasts does not grow from a closed heart. It grows from an aligned heart, aligned with principle, responsibility, and trust. And when trust replaces fear, flow replaces rigidity. And when there is flow guided by wisdom, there is continuous renewal. There is something deeply transformative about conscious repetition. It is not superstition. It is not mechanical ritual. It is inner training. In the scriptures, the number 7 symbolizes fullness, consecration, a cycle completed with purpose. When you decide to repeat Psalm 112 7 times, you're not trying to convince God of anything. You are training yourself. You are shaping conviction. You are reprogramming internal patterns built over years. The real struggle is often not external circumstances, but the silent narrative repeating within. I never succeed. I'm always short. Money never stays. Repeated over time, these phrases carve deep neural pathways. The brain learns the root of fear, the root of scarcity, the root of self-sabotage, and then it begins acting according to that script. Repetition of the word is a conscious replacement of that narrative. When the Book of Psalms presents promises connected to principles, it offers a new mental script. But for that script to become conviction, it must be internalized. And internalization happens through repetition with awareness, not repeating for the sake of repeating, repeating with feeling, repeating with understanding, repeating until each verse moves through thought, emotion, and decision. There is an invisible mistake that empties this practice of power. Repeating words without meditating on their depth. If the mind is distant, transformation does not occur. So with each repetition, choose a different focus. On the first reading, reflect on reverence, aligning priorities. On the second, on generosity. On the third, on firmness in the face of bad news. On the fourth, on justice in decisions. On the fifth, on light in darkness. On the sixth, on stability in the household. On the seventh, on legacy and continuity. Each reading is a layer. Each layer strengthens the structure. Think of Naaman. He immersed himself 7 times in the Jordan. Not once, not twice, 7 times. Perhaps by the third immersion, nothing seemed different. By the fifth, no visible change. But the instruction was not to stop when it felt pointless. It was to complete the cycle. And on the 7th, the transformation became visible. Perseverance makes manifestation possible. From an emotional and neurological standpoint, discipline creates stability. When you practice something consistently, the brain begins to associate repetition with safety. Predictability reduces anxiety. Consistency builds internal trust, and internal trust shapes external decisions. Gradually, you begin to act according to what you declare, and when action and declaration align, results begin to appear with consistency. You may be used to seeking intensity, something dramatic, immediate, overwhelming. But stability is not born from momentary intensity. It is born from quiet constancy, from unseen discipline, from the daily commitment to align mind and heart with firm principles. Repeating 7 times is completing a cycle. It is saying to yourself, I will not stop halfway. It trains the spirit to persevere. It teaches the mind not to quit when results are not yet visible, because often what is missing is not promise, it is continuity. Let this repetition become an exercise in presence. Read slowly, breathe between verses, feel each word, allow them to move from mind to chest, and notice how, little by little, something reorganizes within you. Conviction replaces doubt. Clarity replaces confusion. Firmness replaces fear. 7 times is not excess. It is completion. It is commitment. It is inner construction being finalized. And when the interior is completed, the exterior begins to respond. Aqui está o texto mantido integralmente em profundidade, ritmo e densidade, apenas ajustado para inglês americano natural, fluido e emocionalmente forte. There is a portion of Psalm 112 that expands the vision beyond the present moment. It declares that the descendants of the righteous will be mighty in the land. That completely shifts the focus. It's no longer just about paying this month's bills. It's no longer just about escaping an immediate financial squeeze. It's about legacy. It's about continuity. It's about building something that outlives you. And when vision expands, decisions expand with it. The Book of Psalms does not describe an isolated event of sudden prosperity. It describes a lifestyle, a sustained path, a consistent pattern of reverence, justice, generosity, and steadiness. This confronts the modern trap of quick fixes, the promise of shortcuts, the illusion that one miraculous opportunity will solve everything without requiring inner transformation. But what arrives too quickly often lacks the structure to remain. It's difficult to admit, but financial stability does not come only from increased income. It comes from improved habits. It comes from discipline. It comes from clear priorities. It comes from the courage to adjust direction when necessary. And this is not accusation, it's liberation. Because if the problem were only external, you would have no control. But if part of the construction depends on consistent choices, then power is already in your hands. A miracle may open doors, but character keeps the door open. The psalm reveals that a healthy financial destiny involves a constant reverence for the Lord. And reverence here is not paralyzing fear. It is conscious awareness. It is living with the understanding that decisions carry consequences, that resources carry purpose, that money is a tool, not an identity. When this understanding takes root, your relationship with finances shifts profoundly. After completing the 7 readings, there is a simple yet powerful exercise. Write down one practical decision, something concrete. It might be organizing a spreadsheet. It might be renegotiating a debt. It might be cutting an unnecessary expense. It might be starting a small reserve fund. It might be studying financial management more intentionally. It does not need to be grand. It needs to be real. Faith strengthens when it meets corresponding action, spiritually and emotionally. When you write and execute a decision aligned with principle, you send a clear message to your brain. I am not waiting passively. I am building. That reduces anxiety. It increases a healthy sense of control. It creates internal stability, and internal stability produces external consistency. Think about the metaphor of building on rock. Building on rock takes time. It requires digging. It demands greater initial effort. But when the wind blows, when the storm arrives, the structure remains. Quick construction, built only on the surface, may look beautiful from the outside, but it cannot withstand pressure. Financial stability is not momentary appearance. It is deep structure. Perhaps you have pursued quick answers out of exhaustion. Perhaps you are simply tired of trying. But today, the invitation is not to run faster. It is to walk consistently. Small steps, small decisions, small adjustments repeated over time. That creates trajectory, that builds legacy, that produces real security. The promise of Psalm 112 is not fantasy. It is the consequence of a sustained path. And when you choose to remain on that path, even while results are still under construction, something within you already begins to experience stability. Because you know you are no longer living by impulse, you are living by principle, and principles sustain generations. We have arrived at the most important point, not just understanding Psalm 112, but embodying it. Now, the invitation is not speed, it is depth, to slowly recite the psalm 7 times, allowing each verse to be more than sound, to become awareness. Every phrase carries a promise, but it also carries a quiet condition, alignment with God's principles. This is not spiritual bargaining, it is spiritual coherence. When you declare it, you are committing yourself to live what you are saying. Wealth and riches are in His house, but before that, light rises in the darkness. Before that, the heart becomes firm. Before that, there is reverence. That order is freeing. It shows that provision is not built on luck, not on chance, but on inner structure, a reorganized mind, balanced emotions, faith that produces practice. As you repeat the psalm, allow it to move through you. Do not rush the verses. Feel each word as if you were laying invisible bricks inside your inner house. When you declare that you will not fear bad news, notice your body soften. When you affirm that you distribute and give to the needy, feel your heart expand. When you read that your descendants will be mighty, imagine old cycles breaking and new cycles beginning. Cycles of scarcity weaken when confronted with awareness. Cycles of fear lose strength when they meet firmness. Cycles of disorder begin to dissolve when reverence, generosity, and consistency take their place. It is not instant, but it is real. Every lasting transformation begins invisibly. Now turn this into prayer. Lord, establish my house upon your principles. Give me a firm heart, responsible hands, and a generous spirit. Do not ask only for resources, ask for structure. Do not ask only for provision, ask for wisdom. Do not ask only for open doors, ask for maturity to walk through them. True financial stability is born from the combination of persevering faith, practical obedience, and continuous trust in the Lord who sustains generations. Faith that does not quit halfway. Obedience expressed in daily decisions. Trust that remains even when the scenery has not fully changed. Perhaps tomorrow there will still be challenges. Perhaps some bills will still be there. But something has already shifted. The internal axis has begun to align. And when the interior aligns, the exterior responds over time. Keep repeating, keep adjusting, keep walking. 7 times, 7 days, as many times as needed until conviction replaces anxiety. Because stability is not an event, it is construction, and you have begun building. Remain for a few moments in silence before you finish, not as an absence of sound, but as conscious presence. Let what has been declared settle within you. The human mind needs pause to consolidate what it receives. When you slow down after the word, it anchors more deeply. This is not only spiritual, it is neurological, emotional, structural. If you choose to listen to this for 7 consecutive days, do so with intention, not as an automatic habit, but as a commitment to alignment. Select a quiet time. Breathe before you begin. Allow each repetition to become not merely a request for provision, but a decision to live with reverence, discipline, and generosity. What transforms is not passive listening, it is conscious practice. Perhaps no one will see what is happening inside you during these days. There may be no applause. External results may not appear immediately, but roots will be growing. Structures will be strengthening. Thoughts will be reorganizing. And when the interior changes, choices change. When choices change, results begin to follow a new pattern. If anxiety returns, return as well to the declaration found in Psalm 112, "My heart is firm." If fear tries to dominate, return to reverence. "I choose principles." If impulsivity rises, return to pause. "I can decide with clarity." Repetition is not weakness. It is training. It is maturity being formed. Always remember, money is a tool, not an identity. Provision is the consequence of alignment, not the product of desperation. Stability is a sustained path, not an isolated miracle, and you are learning to walk that path consciously. May your home be marked by peace before abundance. May your mind be marked by firmness before visible results. May your heart be marked by generosity before growth. When the foundation is right, everything else finds its place. Continue, persevere, build, and allow Psalm 112 to become not merely a text you hear, but a foundation you live.